Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode with Help with Natalie Cuomo. I'm here with Steven Cusato, the food freak.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining me.
Happy to be here.
So you are a chef, a cook. You have a show.
I identify more as an Italian grandma.
Okay. Italian grandma.
Yes.
Modern grandma.
That's like my cooking style.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I've come to hone it in as.
I saw that and I wrote down, I wrote Steven, modern grandma.
That's who I am.
And I'm like, tell me what that means.
Well, it's ironic, obviously.
Yeah. It's fun. It's beautiful branding.
Yeah. And it's like, I honestly do identify more as that. Like, if you come over, I like kind of act more as a grandma. I kind of have a little bit of like grandma sass.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, like I really just want to feed you. It's part of what that Sunday supper pop-up I do is just like sharing a tradition, an event, time together, feeding you, spending time. Like that's what it's all about. And so it's like modern grandma is this sort of idea that like, all these traditions, cooking, recipes kind of are they're held together by like your grandparents, your grandma. She's the one whose your memory is kind of like strong of going over on a Sunday and like having a big family meal. But like as I don't know, I'm 38. I'm going to be 38 and I don't have any grandparents anymore, and it's probably common of people getting into their 30s, getting older. And so with that, like those traditions start dying. Right? They start to just fall apart. You just realize like, hey, well, remember that thing we used to do?
Yeah.
We just like, why did it stop? And so like that idea of modern grandma is sort of to like, go back, be inspired from it, take those things that mean something to you, and then now bring them forward, make them your own, make them a little bit more modern, and find a way in this like new adult life that we're living to keep them going, maybe in a new way. Maybe, you had a problem with how grandma did it and you get to do it your own way now. And so it's just kind of like pushing that idea, getting back to that thing that feels like everyone's sort of lost.
Right. I like that a lot. One thing that I think about is, so like I'm very big into watching food shows. Like I've watched every freaking season of every competitive cooking show. And I was watching Michael Pollan's show Cooked a while ago.
Yeah.
And there was one thing that stuck out to me, and I've been thinking about it for years. And it's this philosophy that he had that, and I'm pretty sure it was in this show, that he said that people like watching cooking shows like Julia Child because cooking is like nurturing. So when you're watching a cooking show, you almost feel like you're being nurtured, like by watching it. Like,
yeah.
And I was just thinking about that, just kind of that idea that even just like watching a cooking show itself has that element of like the modern grandma in it.
Well, even the way that I've framed my show is sort of supposed to be this. I used to run a food truck.
Yeah.
And the experience you had when you came to the food truck was you would stand, you kind of look up at me in a rectangle, through a rectangle, and I'm just doing my thing, interacting with you, cooking or whatever. And it wasn't really intentional in the beginning, but like it was sort of instinctual. And I set it up in a very similar way. And I realized like, oh, this is a similar experience, right? Like the idea is almost like you're across the counter, sitting at the table like you would your mom's house or whatever.
Right.
And I'm talking just to you. Like it's
Yeah.
a very personal thing that I hope when people watch it, they kind of feel like they're in the room.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, that's the cooking is an amazing thing to have in your tool belt. You know what I mean? It's a simple thing. It's not vastly difficult to learn. It's what I try and like kind of demystify or break down or like just translate in a new way. But like when you can pull out, even if you have a few dishes. I made this video about how like one of my mom's friends growing up, she was like a judge, busy power woman. And she didn't really like cook all the time, but like she made this one sandwich that like I still think about to this day. And so like she wouldn't classify her as like a home cook, but she's had an impact,
Right.
And so like that's just the power of food. You know, whether maybe it's somebody like you don't have in your life anymore.
Yeah.
It's a dumb little thing they made. You still enjoy it for the meaning of it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
So who taught you how to cook?
I'm a big self-learner.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I liked watching food my whole life. I'm like a steal with your eyes kind of guy.
Okay.
So just like over a lifetime of, you know, going to the diner in the morning and like asking my parents, can we sit at the booth? Not the booth, the counter.
Yeah.
And I just stare at, you know, the short order cooks cooking. If I'm on a date and I get seated at like an open kitchen,
Right.
You've lost me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so I watched a lot of cooking shows. Like me and my brother shared a room, and we would fall asleep to Iron Chef when it was still like overdubbed from Japanese.
Yeah.
You know, the older you got, you kind of take food for granted. Everybody has food in their life. Everybody seems to love food, so it doesn't feel like a special thing to you. But I wanted to learn how to cook because I sort of like learned about how food was produced in America, like early 20s, and was just like horrified.
It is horrifying.
And so I was like, I guess the only real thing to do is to learn how to cook. And so I started a food blog called The Food Freak, which is where my Instagram name comes from. And it was kind of like, and I'm also severely dyslexic, so I loved cookbooks. But at the time, pictures weren't cheap enough to just put on every page.
Right.
So it was just all words. And I'm just like, you know, I just kind of see things, you know, just like nothing's hidden. And they'd use all these esoteric words that I understood, but I was just like, does everyone?
Right.
You know, so it was like, does this even work?
Right.
And so I thought recipes were sort of flawed inherently.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I'll learn how to cook, but I got my dad got me like a nice camera for Christmas. So I would like take 50 to 100 photos of every step.
Whoa.
And I would like do a blog, and it was sort of like me teaching myself how to cook. The food was whatever, but I was working things out. Like, so the first recipe I ever did was just how to make like a tomato sauce that was in my kind of vision.
Okay.
Which has evolved to something different today. But, you know, it was sort of like doing that, like figuring out what I want.
Right.
And so that was helpful because I could cook and then I could see what I did. You know what I mean? I could visually see in some sort of like reflective way. And, you know, my brother was a trained chef at the time. He graduated the French Culinary Institute. He helps me with Sunday supper. He actually is he works doing the sandwiches at Joey Rose's.
Right.
And so at the time I was like, I want to start a food truck. I was working in advertising. That wasn't really, you know, social media was coming in, so that was getting all screwed up. And so we started a food truck, and, you know, that kind of threw me into the fire. I thought I was going to play more of a marketing role, but just the nature of it, there was 3 of us. So like my brother had to cook. We had an operations guy running around doing whatever he was doing. And I was working the truck. So I had to like, you know, take cash, talk to you, put on a show, flip sandwiches.
Yeah.
And, you know, that kind of like gave me the movement chops, the confidence of movement, like the ability to get in the shits and then like kind of have fun with it.
Yeah.
And, you know, we would do all sorts of things. It was a grilled cheese truck, but we did a lot of catering. We did movie production catering, like all sorts of stuff like that, craft services. So we were making all sorts of food, and, you know, I would taste something and be like, oh, I think this needs like acid. It needs a little brightness or whatever.
Right.
And, you know, 2 chefs would then be like, yeah, it kind of does. And then I'm like, okay, I know what the fuck I'm talking about. And so, yeah, I mean, that was mid-20s. I'm 38 now. And so you just keep going and going. And, you know, every phase you get in, you're like, why was I doing it that way a year ago?
Right.
And it still happens today. Like recipes I did on the channel 5 years ago, I was like, well, what was I doing? And so, you know, it's always changing. I'm always improving. You know, there's just so much about food to know.
Yeah.
and you never will know it. And so much to be good at, to practice.
Right.
Like I almost steer away from bread because it's like such a thing of its own. I don't even feel comfortable really feeling like I can translate it for someone who knows nothing about bread yet.
Right.
But once I can, then that's something that I'd start to get into. But it's just, I try and do the work first.
Right.
If I'm making fresh pasta, I should be great at doing it first.
Right.
With tons of practice before I then communicate to you how you can then do it just as good.
So one thing that I noticed on your channel was not only are you really good at like obviously cooking, but I feel like you're very good at the storytelling of cooking, of putting, I mean, I'm not sure at this point if you have an editor or anything like that, but no, it's you.
All me.
Yeah. So obviously you're really good at like, you have a vision of how you're telling the story of the cooking.
Yeah.
And so I think that's also a really big part of your success and what you're trying to convey. Like, do you like there's a creativity behind it more than just what the dish is.
Yeah.
Like, do you kind of like get a spark for how you're going to convey the dish before you do it, or like how does that work?
Well, so I kind of know that, it's almost like sugar-coated pill, right?
Yeah.
Like I want you to get this recipe, but it might not mean anything to you unless I package it in a way that might be more personal.
Right.
And so it depends. Sometimes I have the idea of the story first. Sometimes I have the recipe, and I find a way to make a story out of it. Or maybe the story is of the recipe.
Right.
Like, where is it? What's the story of the recipe? I like story. I mean, I'm trying to push, beyond recipe videos, more like story-based videos. Like I have this vision of a documentary plus a cooking show.
Right.
I feel like it's like anticlimactic, a documentary. It's like I'm learning all this stuff, but I don't see anyone go through a transition, like have an experience, go through a change, be inspired by it, and then create from it.
Yeah.
And so it's like I want to just kind of close the loop and tell fun stories in a way that like I've learned to now be able to do. Like a lot of the videos that are more documentary are difficult, right? Even if we're talking about hiring an editor, those stories come to life when you're editing.
Yeah.
So if I do one of these longer 30-minute like documentary type videos, that's instead of a 2-day process of editing, that's a 1.5 to 2 week one.
Right.
And literally I'm writing it as I'm editing. Oh, I got an idea. I'm going to write it down. That's a good line. That's power. You know what I mean?
Right,
And I'm just building it over time. So it's like I'm still even figuring out how to do that myself. So the idea of me teaching it to somebody feels impossible. You know what I mean? So I'm very much like I need to do it first. I need to know how to do it. The idea of like relying on someone else feels uncomfortable.
Right. I totally get that.
But it's not. I mean, you kill yourself.
Yeah.
And like, when you want to go away, or if you have an event like I have next week, like you kind of can't just keep. You have to figure out a way to. Yeah.
So okay, what is like your main love? Is it just like when does time stop for you?
Like what, outside of work?
No, I mean like I feel like you're a person that like work is your life.
Yeah. I mean, this career was a Hail Mary in the fourth quarter. So like, and I sort of hit, well, I was like 32 and my life fell apart, moved back home and had nothing.
What do you
before
mean?
The show. So before the show, I was like running a production company where I was basically like doing all of this, but not with my face, not talking, and selling it to you as a brand. So say you're like a hummus company. I'd be like, hey, I know you don't have the infrastructure to produce the content that you need to do regularly to stay relevant, so I can do it for you.
Food styling.
Yeah, but I was even doing like videos. Like, imagine my videos like on Instagram, but for brands.
Okay.
And that I did that for a few years. It was like gain a client, lose a client, whatever. But I was basically getting paid to learn how to use cameras and produce stuff like that.
Yeah.
But eventually in like 2017, I got this like very big client. It was a pasta company, and I was, I was broke for so long. So it was like more money than I've ever seen. And I was also engaged at the time. So I was like, oh my God, I think this is what it feels like. This is what making it feels like.
Yeah.
And then that was in like September. in November, they hired a new marketing VP, so he canceled all forward activities. And then a month later, the engagement was called off. And so like in that new year, I moved home at like 31, 32, nothing, like no real job. I had like a client paying marginal money and moved back home. And then I was just kind of like had nothing to lose. So I started the channel. And so now I'm kind of racing to catch up. You know, I mean, most of my life, everyone, my friends, everyone, they were all, you know, in finance, these big salaries, great, they have big families now, like 3 kids. And so part of me just kind of feels like the need to catch up.
Right.
But, you know, cooking outside of producing a show, just getting up, going into the kitchen or going to the store, getting stuff and just screwing around, that is the best.
Yeah.
And it's I love my career. I love what I do. But like, because it's so revolved around, everything is a test for a video coming up, everything. And so I wish I had more time just playing in the kitchen.
What do you think? Like, I feel like right now, more than anything, people aren't cooking at home. Like, people are like ordering in, they're going out to eat, and they're buying things that are processed or pre-made, and they're more removed than ever from like, you know, the process of making food. Like, what do you think brings people closer to like the ingredient, to, you know, cooking and in general?
I mean, for me, it was just education, right? It was just like awareness of things that were going on. And I think people kind of know that by now.
Right.
But for me, I think people are just scared of it. Like they don't know what to do. They go to a restaurant and they have a great steak, but when they try to make it, it just doesn't come out the same.
It's true.
And, you know, there's so many factors involved. Quality of ingredients is one of them. Mm-hmm. But like, I think providing just the tools, like the things that I try and do on the channel is like, I talk through the recipe, like they're longer videos because I'm saying things that I feel like maybe others say as like, this is a waste of time. We have to fly through the video.
Right.
I want to slow the video down. Yeah. I want you to really absorb it. And maybe I repeat myself twice in the video, but there's a reason. Like, I'm trying to get it seared into your mind of this way of doing something or why the ingredient of this matters. Yeah. Like if you're making a tortellini and brodo, it's tortellini and brodo. You know what I mean? There's few ingredients, so everyone matters. You know what I mean? And so if you go out and you make that dish with crap and you're not like, you're like, there's so many variables. Right. And then you follow my recipe and you use bad ingredients, then you're not thrilled with my recipe for what? Because you didn't really follow it. You didn't really understand it, right? So I think, you know, and the way that I look at buying ingredients and food is like, I go out and I buy a nice pair of shoes and a nice coat and I want to live in a nice apartment. So why wouldn't I want great ingredients? Right. You know what I mean? And they're expensive, but it's like, there's a balance. Like I don't go and buy a 3-inch ribeye every night. Yeah. You know, when we have family get-togethers, like I'm going to go out and I'm going to spend the money to get it. But at home, you don't have to spend $50 on dinner every night. Yeah. It's still like, you know, having a great pasta dish costs nothing if you know how to do it right. Right. If you have if you have pepper and cheese and pecorino cheese, and you know the technique of cacio e pepe, you have dinner whenever you want.
So are most of your date nights you cooking?
No, I mean, I like a good martini, so I'm usually like rushing out to like, you know, have a nice martini out, be away from my studio. Yeah. But if I like somebody, yeah, for sure. Right.
Cooking can be a love language for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not shy, but like when I cook, I shine differently. Right. I'm in my comfort zone, right? Yeah, so it's like, even if there is like any sort of awkwardness, I suddenly revert back to like the theater of the food truck. Right. And so it's just like when somebody's having a barbecue, right? And I'm like, I'll man the barbecue, and then I'll be cooking, and I'm like focused, like in it, and people are like, "Are you okay?" They're like worried about me. I'm like, no, you don't understand. This is
you're like I'm in my zone,
happy,
right?
But I'm just doing this thing. So yeah, I love it.
That's so funny. Do you feel like you ever have like a desire to work in a kitchen again or to work in a food truck again?
No, I mean the closest I get a taste of it I do the Sunday supper at the Stand Comedy Club,
right.
And so I get a taste of it there. It's highly stressful.
Yeah.
Well, it's just like I'm a worrier, right? So my worry is like, is this thing as good as it is at home when I make it? Is somebody going to be upset with it? Is somebody going to complain about this, that, or the other thing? So I'm just like in my head the whole time. And I get enough of it online with the comments.
Yeah.
So just imagining with the food, like somebody having a problem with it, like everybody's so particular. So like they come in with this one idea that you don't necessarily fulfill, and then they're like a victim of some kind of misbranding or something. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I mean, I have ideas. I guess if the right kind of opportunity presented itself, I'm more of a guy that would be like, hey, if you're an operator and you need an idea, I'll make that idea for you while you operate it. And that's kind of like a situation that I could get behind. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I've been there, and it's just hard to make money. You know what I mean? And so, and the amount of effort you put into it is so extreme.
Yeah.
You become, married to it. And then if it doesn't work out, it's a bad divorce.
When you were younger, did you think like you were going to be a chef? Did you see that for yourself?
I wanted to be a director, actually.
I can see that. I can see you want, like, because I feel like there's a lot of creativity in the videos you make. So I see that. That makes sense.
I wanted to be Steven Spielberg.
Yeah. I feel like you said that in a video, the Paul Verzi podcast.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, I worked in advertising coming out of college. And in advertising, there are creatives and account people. It's like a clear delineation. You're not both. And so like my dad was in it. So I understood this line my whole life. And when I was in it, I was the account person. I was business person. And so for literally up until my late 20s, I didn't even think I was a creative person. Like that industry had taught me not to be one.
Interesting.
And so what I realized is like your ability to be creative or not is not like an innate thing. Maybe some people are just like, creative geniuses from the day that they're born. But creativity is just your ability in life to expose yourself to new things. Because my creativity is not like some, something from God coming to hit me. It is my exposure to content, seeing what like people in the comedy industry are doing with their businesses, seeing like how this movie narrated a scene. All of these things like I pull pieces from and then just like filter them through my lens, and then that is my creative expression.
Yes.
And then over time you take all of these pieces and then they just mold into like something that feels more like you. Yes,
it's like your openness to like have you done The Artist Way?
No.
I mean, I really talk about every episode of my podcast, but that's fine. I'm obsessed with it. It's basically like about unlocking your creativity, and it's like a 12-step program for it. But I really like, the idea that creativity is accessible to everyone, and also just that like she really talks about like creativity being like allowing God to like speak through you. And it sounds really hocus pocusy, and especially as someone that like I wasn't raised with religion, when you first read it, you feel like maybe a gut reaction to be kind of like, whoa, what is this? But the more I feel myself like writing and being open to it, you're like, a lot of being a creative person is just like letting go of what you already know and being open to seeing what other people are doing, and like being open to I just like experiencing art, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, and you definitely go through those phases where it feels like you're just operating, like something's going through you. And, But I just think that's just like a flow, right? It's like
Right.
sometimes when everything's in sync, when your brain, your body, everything you're doing is kind of in sync, then everything clicks, right?
Right.
Like I find to get into that phase is hard. Like sometimes it happens, but like most of the time I'm like, I suck. This sucks.
Yeah.
Everything sucks. You know what I mean? And I'm like, you're trying to just get pushed to like a new place.
Right. I was talking to my fiance. He was told me this story, and I thought it was because sometimes I get really angry, and like I find it hard to deal with my anger sometimes. And he's like, I thought of you because I heard the story today, and because he was listening to a podcast, and there was like some like guy, and he was like talking to his guru or whatever, some monk, and he was like, I'm feeling really angry with you. The monk went to his guru and he was like, I'm feeling really angry with you. I know it's not your fault, but I'm feeling really angry. What should I do? And the guru was like, you know what you need to do? You need to go to your hut. You need to close all the windows and you need to put all of your robes on and you need to just cook. And I was like, oh my God, that is so awesome. Like, you need to just like make something. And then Dan was like, no, he meant like sweat it out and feel all of the anger. And I was like, oh, I thought he meant just like feel the anger and turn it into art and cook a meal for everyone. He's like, no.
Yeah, I mean, I get like that too. And like, I find the best way to like kind of push through like a wall.
Yeah.
Is you just like, whenever I stop worrying and thinking about it, something comes.
Yeah.
So it's like, I am trying to like travel more.
Yeah.
You know, going to Italy for a week and
that's cool.
Just feasting, right?
Yeah.
Just exploring and like soaking in. You're like just getting bombarded with like new life. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
You have a meal. It's like, oh God, it's amazing. I want to do that. And, you know, you're just getting all of this inspiration, and then you come home feeling fresh. And even like just time on the beach, just literally. Just in the clouds.
Right.
Like all of those things I'm learning are required. Like living a life.
Yes.
Like you guys have to live a life to have content, things to say, jokes to write. I feel like many people are like don't feel like that's necessary for what they do.
Yeah.
And like I was behind a desk for years without like really going out, going on dates, like hanging out.
Yeah.
And so like now I'm realizing like, you know, you become very one-dimensional when you do that. So you have to go out, you have to live, you have to hang out, you have to travel, go on vacation and bring all of that stuff back. And it actually like even with cooking, it makes an impact.
Yeah. What do you think is the best advice you've ever received?
I don't know if a person has ever given me profound advice. But there is a book that I remember reading that I literally think about this all the time, and it's definitely like served me well. It's this guy, Norm Brodsky.
Okay.
He wrote this book called The Knack, and I think he was a editorial contributor to Inc. magazine for a while. I mean, he's like a New York old school entrepreneur. He ran like paper shredding companies and storage companies like in and around the city. And he was just like a really creative businessman for these especially managing these kind of mundane, boring businesses.
Okay.
And he wrote, learning from your own mistakes will make you smart, but learning from others will make you wise. And that like hit me hard. So, and I'd always been sort of like a shy, not really the center of attention. I liked to, you know, I had all these other crazy people in my life, so I just like laugh at them and watch and, you know, experience, you know, when I was running a business, I wanted the food truck. I was like, I wanted to be first to be a grilled cheese truck because there weren't really, this was like in the beginning. I ended up being like last, but that served as the best thing to possibly ever happen because I learned that like being first means you make all the mistakes.
Yeah.
When you're last, you can learn from everyone's mistakes and you can make it better in your own images. You would have made those mistakes. You would have made those naive things that like I wouldn't have liked looking back in retrospect.
Right.
And even with the cooking show, right? Like, you know, I was late to YouTube.
Yeah.
Pretty much. I wanted to do it 10 years prior.
Right.
But I just couldn't commit. I didn't have it. you know?
Yeah.
But now having consumed all of that for a decade, when I'm ready to do the show, like all of these ideas are just kind of bubbling, ready to go. And so, yeah, I mean, like that was one of probably the most like profound things I ever read.
What are some of like, I mean, I guess it's hard to say this, but are there any, like, what's an example of a mistake you saw someone else made and you're like, okay, I'm glad I saw them do that and now I know not to do that?
Well, it was like with menu development of the food truck.
Okay.
Grilled cheeses. There's a lot of, looking back now, like there's a lot of like hack obvious grilled cheese sandwiches. Apple and brie.
Okay.
You know, I mean, just like simple, basic ass, boring shit.
Okay.
And I had all those ideas like written.
It's interesting that your most viral video is the grilled cheese video. Is that because you had a grilled cheese food truck?
I think that's because of the story.
Okay.
The title, the thumbnail, all of those things played a part. It was like, I think the title was the grilled cheese I ate every other day for 2 years.
Yeah.
And it was like this really green, powerful green sauce. You know what I mean? So there's like pop of color.
It did say the grilled cheese I ate every day for 2 years. I never thought that. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
So you're like, why?
Yeah, you're like, why did he eat this every day?
What is this? You
right.
know? And so that's the type of thing. I mean, I have not been able to replicate the success of that video.
There are other ones that have that.
That one did 2 million in 5 days, though. So like, that's far and away unlike how my videos perform.
Right,
and
right.
I don't really understand why.
You got to keep.
And so it's that, you know, that star that you keep chasing.
Right. Interesting. So what happened with the food truck?
So it was me and my brother and another partner.
Mm-hmm.
And we were doing it for like 2.5, 3 years. And, you know, it was hard to, it was just a truck, you know, it made money, but it was like to split between 3 adults that were partners.
Yeah.
It was hard. You know, there's a lot of mistakes. I wanted high quality ingredients.
Right.
So there's like balancing that and making money. And then eventually just me and the other partner, we just, you know, it just, he wasn't like there was a real culture. Like, let's say he wasn't a culture fit if there was one for a food truck.
Okay.
And, you know, we would do like Governor's Ball and Electric Zoo every year. And we were doing it 1 year. I don't know if anyone listening goes to these things, but at Governor's Ball, there was like a literal monsoon on the first.
The mud year?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we were like right in the middle of it in that shack in the middle of the crowd serving grilled cheeses. And yeah, it was the horrifying, disgusting experience of my life. Because,
why?
I mean, by the time it started, you know, it's all muddy. We had boards on the ground that are literally floating. You know what I mean? And you're trying to be sanitary. You're handing a sandwich out the window and it's soaked immediately. So like after like a horrible first day, this was the first day. So now you got to go back 2 more days.
You have to?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
And the next day, like all of our girlfriends were sort of helping, not hired, helping.
Yeah.
And the next day, and you're miserable. You're tired. You're miserable. It's a rough experience. And you know, my partner like got into my girlfriend's face at the time, like in an angry way, and it set me off. So then I got in front of him, and we're like kind of, and then my brother, who's a bear, right, like my bodyguard, he then jumps in between, right, and so now I'm just like I'm fed up. This is like 3 years in, right? We're not really making money. I hate this guy. And I'm like, I'm done. And so I called it, and you know, I was more suited to be doing this. Like, I realized then, like, I need to push towards, and I didn't know whatever I would do now would happen, but like that's what I just ended up pushing towards. Yeah, figuring out the cameras, figuring out how to produce, trying to understand like the new world, online, digital, and you know, eventually it paid off.
So when you're making the short form video content for Instagram. Do you feel like that's just like mostly leading people to your YouTube?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. My brain doesn't really process things in a minute.
Yeah.
I want to go deeper, right? So it's like I'm on all of these short form as like a technicality. I mean, I'm trying to actually do more like bespoke things for them. But like there's not a lot of depth between me and you on Instagram or TikTok.
Right.
Like TikTok and Instagram, what's happened is that everything's come full circle now, right? TikTok and Instagram, it's TV.
Yeah.
You go on, you flip through instead of flipping through the channels, you're just flipping.
Yeah.
And whatever Instagram or TikTok wants you to see is what you see. You don't really see your friends. You don't really.
It's true.
I barely see a lot of the people that I follow. And so, like, to me, that just shows that, we're some sort of maturity in these platforms.
Yeah.
And my eyes are towards whatever's next.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, you're not going to go on TikTok now and blow up like you did during pandemic. Like, it's all slowed
TikTok
down.
is a bit dead. But I do feel like, it's tough. I do feel like Instagram and like Facebook and those platforms are still alive and are still good ways to lead people to places. I mean,
well, my whole thing is like, what happens when the phone stops becoming the primary device? Or what happens when there's other devices that you might be using instead of the phone?
Like what? Like your glasses or something?
They're close to this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And whether you want it or not, it's coming. I just got those Ray-Ban Meta glasses. Yeah.
What are they like?
They're just cameras now. So I want to do like more travel on the street with like friends type content. So I'm like, there's a production problem involved with shooting. Mm-hmm. So if everyone just puts these glasses on and can just press a button and start recording, it solves a huge problem.
Yeah.
And then eventually, like, I'm doing this thing with travel that I'm working on, a little project, and these glasses will eventually you'll be able to walk in front of the Coliseum and be like, hey Meta, what am I seeing? And it'll be like a walking tour guide for you. It's
creepy to me.
So for me, is like technology is about to, like, we've reached a dead point with technology. Phones don't evolve. They're all the same every year. There's just not a lot of huge advances, which means everything's matured. Mm-hmm. So like we're entering a new phase. I mean, Facebook's been around 25 years.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? 20 years. All these things are old now. TikTok's new, but it's still 5. Now it's 5, 6.
Yeah.
So like eventually there's like that natural maturity for all of these platforms and something new comes.
Right. So what is that? How does that shape your creation?
I mean, how cool would it be to put on a pair of glasses and then be in the kitchen while I'm doing my video?
Yeah, that would be cool.
Looking over the pot. You know what I mean?
Kind of like those workout mirrors.
Yes.
A little bit.
Yes. Something, I don't know. I mean, there's got to be something cool on the horizon.
Like you're the next like little Ratatouille on the...
I go to Instagram now and it's like, the Instagram app doesn't even work properly half the time.
Right.
And you're like, is this the pinnacle of creativity? You know what I mean? I just feel like something better has to come.
Yeah. I mean, it's weird. I do feel like social media is where a lot of people spend their time.
It is.
It's really crazy.
I remember, like, during all these guys that were getting big on TikTok, I would hang out with them and they're like, you got to get on TikTok. You got to get on TikTok. It's all anyone ever watches. And I'm like, just wait until you kids get 30 and your neck hurts and your eyes can't see the fucking phone and you just want to watch something on a big screen. You know what I mean? Like, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Eventually, you guys are going to get old too.
Right.
You know what I mean? And might change. You might be not watching everything on your phone.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm getting old. But
no, I agree. Do you feel like
YouTube viewership on TVs for me is going up? It's now a third.
Really?
A third of views are coming from YouTube TV.
And it
not YouTube TV, YouTube on a TV.
Right. I like that. I mean,
I love it.
Interesting.
That's how I watch all my YouTube.
Yeah. Interesting. So it is kind of like it's another app, just like Netflix or Peacock, because it's just another thing that people...
It's actually the biggest one, I think.
Yeah. It's kind of cool. It gives more power to the creators, if you really think about it.
I would love to have those email addresses.
Yes.
I mean, Google, what the fuck?
I know. So tell me more about the Sunday suppers that you do at the stand.
Yeah, so they're just like the persona, the live event that sort of encapsulates like that idea of modern grandma. So,
Okay.
and I'm a huge comedy nerd,
Okay.
right? So, I think there's an agent, Justin Edbrook, who watched the channel and was a fan, and he just like reached out and we became friendly, and he introduced me to the guys at the stand,
Yeah.
Chris and Paul Italia, and we kind of like hit it off, became friends.
When was this? Like a while ago?
2001.
Oh, wow.
I mean, no, 2021. I'm sorry.
I was like, Jesus Christ.
That's the dyslexia. And so, you know, like I pitched them on this idea of like a pop-up Sunday supper type pop-up.
Yeah.
They're two Italian brothers.
Right. They and fresh pasta.
You know,
Are you kidding me?
Paul's with the pizza. You know, he wants to turn the stand into like a bistro.
Are you making arancini? Because Chris is in.
Yeah. And so, you know, I'd talk to Chris I'd ask him about comedy, just like nerd out, be like, just stuff in the past, you know what I mean? And so like I just like loved hanging out. I'd sit next to him at the stand.
Yeah.
You know, comedians just walk by. I was like, this is great. This is like, you know, all I've ever wanted. And so we started with one at New York Comedy Festival in 2021, November. And I didn't really know what it would be. I was really nervous.
Yeah.
First time ever like feeding people. They're paying. You know what I mean? It was like a lot of pressure. But it was a great experience. We did it again, and then we kept doing it. And I was like, I can't keep doing. We film it, right? So I make like a reality show, documentary type of the event with all the characters at the stand, and eventually I was like, I can't keep just doing me, right? Like the story of the video gets repetitive,
right?
So we started bringing in guest chefs. So
That's
we get some of like, you know, the most prominent Italian American chefs in New York and in America. We try and collaborate with them. We bring them in. We make them a part of like the centerpiece of the night. We get on stage afterwards, and I sort of like talk to them about me and Alexis Guerreros. I have a hard time saying his last name. I want to always make it Cuban. We get on and we have a conversation, basically like, tell me about your story. Like we just had Joe Sasto on, and you know his mother passed away, so he made the dish he remembers his mother growing up on, and now shares that with the 100 people who show up, and this video that we then make. And so like it's like really something different, right? Like it's not an easy thing for any person like me to create. Like it is something that is like kind of like an ace in the hole.
Right.
It's this unique type of content that, you know, is kind of one of a kind, and it has heart. Like the stories I want to tell, like, you know, I'm not too interested in showing the world that I can make a burger better than McDonald's.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like I'm more interested in telling like real heartfelt, deep stories. And like, you know, the fact that Joe, who's like a Food Network star, like comes on and tells this very personal, deep story, like that's amazing. You know what I mean? Like I was just watching it earlier, and it was like, it's powerful.
Yeah.
And so like the ability to kind of give people a platform to not only come in and, you know, share a night with us, but then to have this like, you know, personal expression shared that, I don't know. I mean, Joe doesn't have a restaurant really. He's on the Food Network. He doesn't have a real place that to tell that story. He does pop-ups all the time, but like I don't know if people are there to like necessarily hear that, but to kind of create a space where as a chef you can be like, this is why this means something to me.
Right.
You know, I think it's an interesting thing. And, you know, it's always fun. It's more like a dinner party than anything else. And, you know, it's great. We're going to really try and like ramp it up in the new year. We're going to try and do it like more often, really like get on top of like securing down guest chefs and, you know, really make it something fun.
What is like, what would be the dish that tells your story?
Well, the Sunday sauce that I make, it's a Sunday sauce. It's regular tomato sauce, Neapolitan Ragu cooked with meatballs, sausage, and short rib. My story with that is like, that is a version of what my grandma my dad's mom would make for us, but I didn't have that tradition regularly like normal Italian Americans. My grandma lived in Albany.
Okay.
And my birthday's 2 days after Christmas. So every year we would just travel up to Albany after Christmas. I'd have my birthday there, and we would, as soon as we walked in, the dinner table's, like the sauce is on the stove, almost ready, dinner table's ready, and you're about to eat rigatoni with meatballs and sausage. But like that was rare, right? My mom's parents, which lived in Yonkers, close by, we didn't really do it. My mom didn't really do it.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it was a special thing that I never really got.
Mm-hmm.
I would taste it once or twice a year, and from just like sit there and that's so good. You know what I mean? Just remember it. So like for me, it's this idea of like taking this thing I miss or didn't even really have much of anyway, and making it my own, making it now a tradition of mine. And something that I will do regularly. Maybe it's not every Sunday.
Right.
I'm busy. But, you know, it's something now that, like, when I have a family, maybe that changes. Maybe I do want to do it every Sunday.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's just something now that I'm, like, committing to myself to want.
I like that.
Yeah.
Huh. Okay. I like that. I feel like the tradition of food is so important with family.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a reprieve at the end of a day.
Yeah.
To just have a good meal. Even if it's just you and Dan, you know what I mean? Like, you're just not worrying about anything else. You're focused. It's like a game, right? You're just like focused. It's like a puzzle.
Yeah.
You're putting pieces together, throwing it together. Your mind's just gone, right?
Yeah.
So there's so much power in food, and like the ability to cook does so much for you as a person. I encourage everyone.
Well, I'm waiting for my invite for the Sunday supper.
You come Sunday.
It's this Sunday?
November 12th, so a week from Sunday.
So we are going to pull some tarot cards.
Okay.
Do you like tarot cards?
I don't know much about them.
Okay. Well, we'll see. Well,
you're not going to hex me, are you?
I might. Will you shuffle the deck?
Yes.
We'll see how this goes. We're going to see your past, present, and your future.
All right. Let's see. That was good.
What? Yeah, that was
right?
good. That was good. I like seeing I like seeing people shuffling techniques.
Ooh.
Pretty good there.
Okay, that good?
Yeah. All right. So it's gonna be your past. Oh wow. Okay.
That doesn't look good.
I don't know this card that well, but I should. I don't really know these cards that well, but they are actually pretty creative, these cards. So this is a wand heavy reading.
Okay.
Which is like fire, which is creativity, that's like the creative sign.
Which one is that? This one?
These two are wands. So this is like the Hangman, which is in the Major Arcana, and this is the Six of Wands, and then the Three of Wands. So this is her past, the Hanged Man, which we're gonna have to read about because I don't really know what's going on here.
The Hangman.
I feel like the Hangman is like observing things.
Okay.
But we're just gonna figure it out. We're learning together. We're making a sauce.
So what's the idea of tarot cards? It tells you something about yourself?
Okay, so tarot cards, we are kind of like being introspective and like we're kind of it's like a way of looking at your life, and like it's kind of a way of like looking at your life in a new way. It's not like you're trying to predict the future, but you're kind of like being introspective in a way that you wouldn't normally.
I'm very introspective.
Well, here, I'm challenging that.
Okay.
All right, the Hangman. Okay, in the past, in the most recent past, I guess, you let go of something.
Mm-hmm.
Many people talk about the art of letting go, but what does it really mean? The Hangman has all the answers. He's a master of non-attachment. This card implies there's a sacrifice or a difficult or painful situation in your life that you naturally want to resist and struggle through it and be more like the Hangman. Find stillness, open your eyes, and use this perspective to learn something. You're stuck here either way.
It's accurate.
I mean, that is kind of your past. You made the best of a situation.
Yes. And I had to let go.
You let go.
Let go.
Acceptance.
You don't let it ruin you.
You found beauty
You
and you
move
found a new
on.
path.
That's called life.
This one, the Six of Wands, it's like a butterfly rising above all the bullshit.
I like that one better.
That's the present. I got to read from the book. I don't know these ones that well. There's 76 cards in here, so. Okay, this one, victory, success, rising up. It's current moment.
Like the phoenix.
So you had to sacrifice and let go, and now you're having success. From the dark entangled branches, now emerges a butterfly. New life takes flight. If you're not reveling in the joy of success already, you will be soon. Six of Wands is a card of victory, of rising up against the odds. The obstacles have been relentless, but now is not the time to look back upon them. The more pressing question is, where will you go with your new set of wings? This is...
See, I like that. That fills me with good juju.
Yes. See, you really... You stood still when you had to let go of your past in advertising, let go of a relationship. You had to let go of the food truck. You just let it be. And then you found a new situation. You rose up, victory, success, 1 million fucking YouTube subscribers, not another cooking channel. And then your future still looking really good. We've got the three of Wands here, which is also amazing. It's actually envisioning the future. It indicates that you've actually had continued support from others, from your parents or good friends. Also
true.
And they've helped you form a sense of self and your values and morals. Now you're gonna rely on yourself for guidance, but now it's time to rely on yourself for guidance. Clarify your goals, cast others' needs and opinions aside. The future is infinite and it's yours. No one else can see through its layer of light and shadow.
Yeah, somebody told me that the music I use in my Instagram videos are corny and cliche today. And so you got to let it go.
Exactly. Oh, no. The future is yours. It's not theirs. I like that, though, because I feel like this is like you're rising above, and now it's like, you have to trust your gut and move forward. And it's like a really pretty future if you let your heart guide yourself.
If you just told me, don't worry about your future, it's going to be good. That's like all. That's what this card is saying. I do is fear the future.
I feel that. I think that's what I mean. The unknown is the scariest thing.
Yeah, it's the huge. I'll make something up and then worry about it for the rest of my life.
Me too. But you know what? The bad things that happen in my life are never the made up scenarios that I get worried about. Like whenever something bad happens to me, it's never the thing that I made up to be obsessed over worrying about happening.
Yes.
I'm like, if that's the terrible thing, whoa, did not expect it. I thought it was going to be this weird scenario that I created.
Yeah. But the problem is when things good start happening, like in your career, in life, as you get older, then it's like you have stakes. You know what I mean? Then it's like, God, if something goes wrong.
Yeah.
Then that's really a hard pill to swallow.
It is really, it is tough, especially since for me personally, like comedy, I feel like is my whole identity. It's my whole life. It's what I put everything into. And so it feels like the stakes are so high with my career because it's like, it's everything to me.
Yeah.
But there has to be, even just for your mental health, a way to like lower the stakes and be like, it's going to be okay. You're alive. You got your...
That's when a trip to the beach does wonders.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Well, Steven, thanks so much for joining.
Thanks for having me. I brought you, it's getting cold out, so I brought you one of my hoodies.
Oh my God.
You can cook in it.
Hey, let's
get
cook
nice
more.
And cozy.
I love this.
That's
wow,
yours.
This is awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Very cozy.
Thanks for having me.
I love it. Where can people find you?
On YouTube, Not Another Cooking Show. Instagram, The Food Freak. Not Another Cooking Show on TikTok. And if you Google any of those, you'll find me.
Amazing. Awesome. Thanks so much for being here. And as always, you can find us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts. We now have a fourth wall, which is like a Patreon, but it's better. So check us out at helpwithnatalie.com and we'll see you next week. Bye.